Second.
28.
Okay.
28.
Has everyone met Bronwyn?
No.
No.
Bronwyn?
Hi.
Bronwyn.
Council, Bronwyn is the new undercurrent editor.
Oh, fabulous. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
you all, thank you.
Welcome.
Maybe.
Thank you.
And we are live.
Look at me, all go quiet.
Must be time.
Except for you.
Okay, I'd like to call this council meeting to order, please. Mayor Skeels is busy traveling somewhere, enjoying himself. Not that we're not enjoying ourselves being here. So Tyler, do we have any late items? First option is adoption of the agenda.
At what point can I ask to add something?
To the agenda?
Yes. Now, I was wondering if I could add under, under new business, just a short update from the LGLMA conference on housing. Okay.
Is everybody okay
Is that
with
the
that?
second? Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. And anything else anybody wants to add to the agenda?
Uh, Yes, we'd like to add the minutes from the Smug Cove Improvements Working Group. There are a number of recommendations that Councillor Kale forwarded to the rest of council on Friday afternoon.
Did everybody from council get a copy of those
Yeah.
resolutions? Because I didn't.
They're the ones I sent
I
to you.
didn't get anything from you. I have trouble with my personal email being too full, but there's nothing there. I checked.
Did you get a copy, Kathy?
I did. So Gary, did you get
Yep.
resolutions from?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
It got sent to MN5.
yeah, which didn't, nothing's there. Okay, I had understood it was just sent to me and Kathy from Kathy, so it went to all council?
Yeah.
Yes.
So all councils had the 24-hour resolution, so. Okay, so where are we going to put those? Under reports of House Commissions, 9.4.
Yeah, that's fine.
And this is the Smug Cove Improvements Working Group.
Yes.
Would you like to take a copy and pass it?
All right.
People want to pass it on.
Can I have a motion to approve the agenda with the addition
As
of the
amended.
on-table and late items?
With that?
Second.
All those in favor? Passed.
Yep.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, public comment.
There are no public comments today.
Okay, moving right on. So the consent agenda. Oh, is there anything anybody wants to pull from the consent agenda?
I just want to check my email that has the things that just came from Tyler.
Anybody else got anything they want to pull from the consent agenda?
Sorry, was there something that had been?
Well,
pulled
Sue Ellen's
through?
just checking
I'm
something.
just checking
She
my
thought she
email, the
wanted-
things that you just sent out. I just
Sure.
wanted to make sure that it was what we talked about earlier today.
Well, we've approved the agenda, now we're in the consent agenda. Are we wanting to pull anything? I would like to pull 3.14.
Sorry, 3.4.
314. All right,
Thank you for that.
so on that basis, can I have a motion that council approve the items as outlined in the May 14th, 2018 consent agenda? And you'll put in the full one, right, Kyle?
Yes, as in.
All those in favor? So, I believe we are now at delegation. We just, and where did we
It's
do
like
with
our
Murray?
dedication is missing.
He's getting into his slum costume.
Oh, come on, not seriously.
We'll reach otherwise. Oh, you know, you got an extension cord there.
There is an extension cord here, we just needed a plug.
Oh, well, you got a really, really long extension.
Couldn't you find something bigger?
Yeah, turkey.
That must be a good thing.
Okay, so before the chair of Tourism Bowen Island starts to speak, I just wanted to, in the interest of full disclosure, I am on the board, and because this is just an information session, I was hoping the way around if I sat and listened in.
Find out what we did.
If we get into any discussion or any resolutions, then we'll be out of here.
Basically, what I'd like to do is, first of all, introduce Jody Lorenz. Jody's our administrator for Tourism Bowen Island. She's a part-time staff member, and part-time, but she works about 80 hours a week. And number two is, because we've been going through with the training of the staff, the hiring of the staff, the training of the staff, our year end is almost finished. And we don't have a full written report for you, but it will be coming by the end of the month. So you'll have a full, presentation, but you just get to put up with me right now. Basically, first of all, I'd like to reiterate our wonderful brochure. And this year, we added in a whole bunch of information, and with an additional 10,000 copies, so we're distributing 40,000 copies throughout all of Metro Vancouver instead of just the primary downtown hotels and info centers. And just this week, May 9th, I received an email, which is absolutely wonderful, because again, the young lady sitting behind me, she worked with every advertiser, wrote every word, and is basically responsible, her and a wonderful young lady down at Rethink put this wonderful thing together. And this young lady's name is Dawn Wester. Don't know where she's from. But to Murray, M-U-R-R-Y, after son, Chair of Tourism Bowen Island, after reading about Bowen Island in a magazine article several decades ago, I finally had the opportunity to visit your community this past weekend. My visit to your island was made possible because of the brochure, Secrets of Bowen Island. The reason your brochure was so important for my visit was because of the ease in which it was written and the information that it offered. The brochure answered all of my questions: which bus to take from Vancouver, what to do while on the island, while the Compass Pass could be used on your public bus system, and that there were restaurants and pubs to enjoy. The breakdown of the hiking trails and the identification of their difficulties was also helpful and something I will reference as I plan my next visit. Thanks for making this brochure available. I thoroughly enjoyed my visit to Bowen Island. So, and look forward to visiting you again. Obviously, I sent her a note back saying I'm going to be doing a presentation to council and I'd love to read the letter. And she replied, yes, you're welcome to reference my letter during your next council meeting. As a visitor to your province, so again, she's out of province, it was significant that I stumbled upon your brochure at the Sandman Signature Hotel in Richmond, our expanded distribution. As I mentioned, I had wanted to visit Bowen Island for years, but didn't quite know how to get there or what to expect once I was there. Your brochure answered all my questions and made planning my day trip an easy adventure. The irony of this situation is that I, a tourist, passed on my brochure to a colleague who used to live in Vancouver. He too had always been curious about Bowen Island, but didn't quite know how to plan his visit. Your brochures made it easy to find themselves passed from one keen visitor to another, like sharing a very special secret. I think it's also important to note that your brochure was impactful because it was printed In today's world of electronic information, one has to remember and initiate the research. In contrast, when I saw your brochure, it twigged my memory and offered me quick answers. I honestly don't think I would have thought to research Bowen Island. Congratulations to you and your college for producing a wonderful document. That just made everything quite worthwhile. It's really neat. We'll go do a click on your little machine there, Tyler. So what we've done is just put together a small brochure or presentation to you. I think you can read that. Bowen Island Information Center operated 7 days a week from mid-May through September 14th. You remember last year the weather was absolutely awful until the long weekend. And that's when summer hit Bowen Island. When staffing allowed, we provide mobile visitor services. We actually went out, had one of our staff members standing by the cenotaph and talking to people as they came off the ferry. We increased the operating hours by 8% over the previous year, recorded a 79% increase in total visitors. Next one, Tyler. The statistics, those are tough to read, but on the top section, top half is 2016, where we operated 913 hours and had a total visitors of 7,873. This past year, we operated 987 and a half hours and recorded 14,071 visitors. Remarkable growth, remarkable 79% increase. It was really quite a year for Tourism Bowen. What we are doing this year, you've all seen the kiosk out front. Wanted everybody to actually see it instead of just photographs. There's a long story behind the production of this kiosk. We applied for a grant, an innovation grant from Destination British Columbia in November of 2016. We were awarded the $6,500 innovation grant in about April, I think, of last year. So we started talking to people, started talking to different designers, different architects, different, everybody from Ron Woodall to James Tour and everybody in between. Had people come up with concepts but couldn't produce it. Had people say that they could produce it, but we didn't have the confidence that they could. And ideas, everything from a wooden push cart to, we actually investigated buying one of these neat little, what kind of car?
Nissan Escargot.
Escargot.
Oh, yeah.
No, it was already deckled out and had many 100,000 kilometers on it from another company. And luckily we took it to BCAA before we purchased it. Spent a couple of $100 and saved ourselves a lot of headaches. So and that, we worked and worked and worked. About last October, in our board meeting, I made a proclamation. This was after we had our AGM in August, that we're probably going to have to give this money back to Destination BC. We were wits' end. Jody had put in hours and hours. I had put in a lot of frustration, and just trying to get a concept and then even the permission. Where could we put it? We had a concept of what it could be, and so we were talking to BIAC, we were talking to the library, we were talking to Union Steamships, we were talking to you guys, we were talking to anybody and everybody who would listen to us. Nobody would give us any confidence that we would have a place to put it. Now I think that people can see this. I think that will be overcome, I'm hoping. At the meeting, Robin Montcalm, I think the last name is, from Branch and Company. She is new on our board. Her husband, partner, was there, Branch. And he said, well, that's what I do. I design stuff and manufacture and get it put together and made, and I can do this. And we said, well, you can do it, but you've got a time period of about 2 months to do it, before we have to give back the money. In February, in about December, I wrote a plea to Destination BC because they wanted everything done before the end of the calendar year. And we got it extended, so it was close to the end of their operational year, our operational year at the end of April. We took possession of it about middle of March, and today is the official unveiling. We brought it up here for you guys to see. And I think this is going to be an absolutely wonderful thing. I envision it down by either the cenotaph, or if we can't utilize that, because I understand it is private property, perhaps down by Gino's, that little park area that I think municipality owns. I'll be coming begging, or somewhere. We'll find, we'll put it in the middle of traffic lane. Cardina Road's nice and wide now. But anyways, we'll be looking now for an actual location for it. Tourism Bowen Island, it's a registered non-profit organization, managed by a volunteer board of directors. Myself as chair, Maureen Sawasi is the vice chair, Taylor Jones is the treasurer, secretary is the amazing Allison Morris. Members are Oitis, Tina Overbury, Basha, and Robin. We have just formulated, I did a call out for a marketing committee because I'm a salesman. I can get the word out. That's what I do for a living, or I did for a living before I moved here. I haven't made any money since I moved here. But I put out a call for a marketing committee because now that we've got an amazing brochure, we've got a presence in the marketplace, we've got fabulous support from Destination British Columbia and Tourism Vancouver, et cetera, working with Vancouver's North Shore Tourism Association. We've got a lot of plans that we need to implement to extend the season, to work on that, and I'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. But so put out a call for a marketing committee. Had an email from a fellow, and he says, I've just moved to the island. He says, I've been a diplomat around the world. My specialty is social media. Yes. Doing strategic planning for social media. Basically, we've done a lot of social media, but it's all seat of the pants and not really knowing what we're doing, but getting the word out as much as we could. Another young lady, she said, well, we have a house on Bowen Island. We haven't moved there yet. We live in town. But I have a master's in tourism strategic planning. Could I help? Yes! And then I am, thank you, I'll put on another hat, thank you from Eagle Cliff, doing a little blitz of the neighborhood for membership in our community association. Ran into a young lady who used to be in sales at the Hotel Vancouver. So she's said that she would be on it. So that's Baz is the diplomat, Kara is the genius, Sally is the hard worker, and Denise Lawson, who's done our website, and of course the amazing Jody. In addition to operating the Visitor Information Center, we're basically a destination marketing organization supported in part by Destination BC. We received $7,500 from them for its marketing, and we utilize the profits from the advertising in here because it's $7,500 with its matching funds. So in the first year, I had to loan the money to Tourism Bowen Island to be able to match the funds. So they've changed them so they work a little better with us. But the matching marketing funds, it's been fun working with them. We're the only organization in the province that operates the way we do. We work with them on a basis where they will give us the money first and then so we can spend it. Most of the time you have to do and then submit your receipts and can't do that because we don't have anything. Then the website. We've got an amazing website. We recorded over a 40% increase in sessions and users in 2017. You can go down to two more. There we go. Again, shoulder season dates from October to February, 2017 to 2018. We've gone from page views is the most important, 9% increase in the shoulder season, but a 56% increase from April 1st to February 28th. So 155,294 page views of our Tourism Bowen Island website. That's pretty impressive. That's a lot of things for a little island. So there's all the other numbers up there that mean absolutely nothing to me, but Denise Lawson has done just an extremely good job on that. The next one, the Secrets of Bowen Island brochure, includes 2 new spreads. We increased the size of it to, there we go, yep. 2 new spreads, Artisan Squares and trip ideas. As I said earlier, we printed an additional 10,000 copies because we ran out last year. Brochures distributed off-island, promote inbound visitation and distributed at the info center. We classify our brochure as the island lure piece. It's the thing that people like my dear close friend here, Don, to get them turned on to actually coming to visit us. The map and guide that will be produced next year by Rotary, that's the fulfillment piece. When people get here, how do you get around, et cetera, et cetera. So we support both of those initiatives. We have some amazing maps, and next year's brochure is going to be even better.
You got 3 minutes, Mary.
And, well, that's a good thing, because there's, at the end of it, nope, you went the wrong way again. Oh, no, you didn't. Keep on. We wish to thank Bowen Island Municipality for the $15,000 we get. That's a grant, an ongoing, there's a word for it, service agreement that we have with you for operating the info center. It goes towards some of Jody's wages and just keeping the place open. That's on a year-round basis. We also received some money from the Destination British Columbia, and we also received some money from the student grant program. We've got an amazing young lady, Ashley Murphy, and a young man,
Jonah Shatsky.
Shatsky, yeah. And both of them are just really doing well. The thing that we want to do is, as I said, get into marketing. And the marketing is going to cost money. We're looking at trying to extend the season. One of the things we're doing to raise the money is we're doing a reservation service, so people can phone Tourism Bowen Island and reserve a accommodation on the island. We're getting a 10% commission on those. We're looking at extending the season. I'm meeting with Chris Corrigan to talk about the village as a venue. We have the Bowen Lodge, the Lodge at the Old Dorm, and now we've got the Artisan Suites and the Chocolate Suites, and potentially 1 or 2 more suites up at Artisan Square. So we can sell Bowen Island as a venue for the small meetings and gatherings, et cetera, especially when we get this conference center, community center with a couple of meeting rooms and whatever. We're developing packages. Jody also, on her, whenever I give her 3.5 minutes off, she has her own company called Bowen Tours, and is getting some wonderful press around the world on her tours. They, along with Bowen Lodge, is putting together some package tours. We've now got Bowen Island Adventure Tours. We're working on some golf tournaments. Disc golf is, I think, in front of you soon to get permission to do that. The new Grafton Lake Trails are going to be absolutely marvelous, and that's going to be a year-round thing. And Lumberjack Show, Car Show, Apple Fest, White Table Dinners. Are you all familiar with what's going on with those?
Yeah.
Just, things are really happening. All it takes are marketing dollars. We are hopeful that Bowen Island Municipality will recognize tourism as a major economic generator of the island, and we hope that along with the Economic Development Committee, we will one day be a true destination marketing organization with marketing dollars and potentially maybe even tax dollars coming in from MRDTs and all these other wonderful ways. But we are working, we're doing everything we can. As I say, we're all volunteers, and we want to see all of these merchants and restaurants and bars thrive throughout the year, not just 3 or 4 months. So don't swear at the people in the lineups. You know, they're keeping those people employed and alive so we can have stores and restaurants in the wintertime. Thank you.
So
Thanks,
Murray's
Brian.
time is up, but we're a little ahead of schedule if anybody has any burning questions.
Murray, do you have enough funds to cover you? This year is busy. Looking at Vancouver's reservation charts across the hotels this year is still stronger than last year. And I can't speak for the rest of the province. Is there enough hours to cover the tourism office? Because if you get growth, you won't have the same percentage growth, but if you get growth, it's really going to get hammered.
It's going to be tough because as we say, we've got, Jody puts in a lot of hours and a lot of donated hours, as does Denise. But with the 2 staff we've got right now, it's going to be tough. I just had a note from our treasurer, and he's toying with the figures. Either we're going to have a very tiny profit or surplus, we should call it, not a profit, or a $3,000 loss over last year, because we did keep it open. We had more expensive staff on it, and we did operate a lot of hours. This year again, we've been open a couple of weeks earlier than we did last year, and we have to stay open through September. You know, it's busy.
Mm-hmm.
It's busy now. We should have been open a month ago. We should have full-time staff. You know, so right now it's tough. That's why we're doing the reservation service. We are finding, because of what's happened in Vancouver with the Airbnb situation where they closed down a lot of them, a lot of people are coming to Bowen Island for extended periods, like 5 days instead of their regular 1 or 2, and doing day trips to Vancouver. Which, yeah, very interesting, because they can't, who can afford a $400 or $500 a night or more hotel room? You know, I should have said that.
That was either Rory or Ismail, I can't remember.
One thing, you didn't, 2 things. You didn't mention Rethink.
Yes, you did.
Yeah,
Did
quickly,
you?
yes.
At the beginning?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Right,
Oh, yeah.
thanks. And then the second thing is that, I mean, that you have outstanding results this year. But as you know, there is a downside to tourism for local residents.
Mhm.
How do you see those kinds of issues being addressed? Do you see them being addressed? And how could the municipality help with that?
Ooh, good question. I think the biggest complaint that we get is the fact during the summer you can't walk into your favorite restaurant at 6 o'clock at night on a Saturday night and sit down and get a seat. The places are full. You can't do that anywhere. you know, yes, we've been spoiled because we haven't had any levels of business. Bowen Island is getting known, and it's a place to come, and we're known. I just did a trade show on Thursday in Vancouver with all the hotel concierge and all the information staff for Tourism Vancouver and bus drivers and you name it, people who are doing the Tourism Vancouver, what do they call that, the passport program, where they go around and they experience everything. And it's going to be a busy, busy year. And I guess we just have to somehow, we were talking about it today, possibly do things. We've got an amazing new editor with the paper who I've already had a meeting in a bit with, and with the bulletin, to just do a letter, do some massaging to the populace, and just, you know, let them know that yes, for 3 or 4 months you've got to share Bowen Island a little bit to be able to enjoy it for the other 8 months. Bowen is changing, and the people are changing, the demographics are changing, as we know. So we just have to realize that we just can't expect things to be as easy as possible.
Thank you.
Jody, you had a comment?
Yeah, if I can just comment, Maureen, add a little bit more to that. The Secrets of Bowen Island, I mean, for the past couple of years, as far as Tourism Bowen Island goes, we realized that we're kind of almost at capacity during the busy summer season, and that's not really what we're about. Our objective and focus is to turn Bowen Island into a 4-season destination. So extend the stays, the shoulder season and the winter. So balance that out so that come here in the winter and get away from the city, get cozy in front of a fireplace. So that's going to be our more focus. We realize we don't need more people coming over in the summer when it's really busy. So that's the focus of our marketing initiative. And the Secrets of Bowen Island, that was the whole cover. You can see when you open up the brochure, it's showing walking in the fall, autumn leaves and the trip ideas. And so our messaging is all about come here and get cozy. And if the lights go out in a winter storm, that's okay, you know, just cozy up to the fire and have a glass of wine or something. So we are aware of that. I certainly want sustainable tourism. So that's what we're really trying to strive. It's not about trying to get more people coming in the sunshine in the summer.
The first paragraph in here is, when was the last time you walked the woods on a rainy day, sat on the beach and watched the storm blow by, or cozied up beside a wood-burning fire with a good book? Psst, want to know a secret? Bowen Island is a great getaway any time of the year. So those are the first words people read when they open up.
Melanie, I think you had a...
Yeah, I was just wondering if you started a dialogue with BC Ferries at all about how to maybe manage the summer issues. Because they're very
really
much looking at growing their ridership and just making
We've tried for months just to try to get a report from them on the non-experienced card users, so we know how many, you know, that's the best judge.
Oh, I've got that. You didn't ask me.
I know you did. Yeah.
I don't have the current one, but I've got older ones.
Okay, yeah, well.
Yeah, we've got the older ones too,
Oh,
but
okay.
I asked again for this past year.
Yeah, they still don't
I have
have.
to ask again, maybe they can do it now, I don't know.
But that's, you know, and I sit on on the 2 committees that they've had running so far. And, but no, to sit down with them on a one-to-one basis to talk about tourism, no, I haven't.
I think they might be a bit open to that now.
Yeah, cool.
You know, improving the experience, the travel experience, and looking at different ways of bringing people here, you know, whether it is improving the bus connection, that sort of thing. That might be an interesting
Yeah, it's a
conversation
shame
to
that
have.
we won't be having the Granville Island service this year, because that was very, very popular.
Well, you've got the public comment time as well as the delegation.
Can I put my name down again? Thank you, guys. We
Thank
do
you.
really appreciate the support we get. Everybody in this building is just absolutely wonderful, especially one young lady sitting in the front. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Thanks for letting him leave the kiosk here a couple
Yeah.
days.
Free parking.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, it is going to be there all day tomorrow because I forgot I'm going out of town.
Do we need it locked up tonight before you go or something?
No.
I don't think so.
There's too much in it.
We'll send all the staff pictures with the kiosk.
There you go.
displays.
Perfect. Yeah. Social media.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, I've lost my green page. All right, Emma, 7.1, Gardena Drive intersection. And then I think we pulled 3.14 from the consent agenda, so I think it falls quite nicely right after that.
That's
To do
the-
with Gardena Road parking.
Okay.
I prepared a short presentation to summarize the report, so no new information, but just to highlight the key information. The background comes from the 2016 traffic safety review that was undertaken by CTS Engineering. I think it was in preparation for the transportation plan project. And several key issues were identified around the alignment of the lanes going through the intersection at Gardena and Bowen Island Trunk Road, and pedestrian safety deficiencies, including proper sidewalk connections and obstruction of sight lines, and also non-compliant pavement markings. So since then, the pavement markings have been mostly addressed by Public Works. I think many of you can recall when the line was repainted through the intersection. It was a big help, I think, to a lot of visitors. But that being said, the current improvements that are going on in Gardena right now are meant to address a lot of these issues. We're going to be getting sidewalk connection all the way from the corner, this northwest corner, down to the causeway, as well as curb bulge outs on both sides to provide more pedestrian area and give clear sight lines. And we also had the retaining wall, or the rock wall, that went in about a month ago, and this provides enough space for us to shift the lanes up and better realign those lanes going through the intersection. So before this alignment, ignore the curve here, before the realignment of the lanes, you can see the two offloading ferry lanes have to jog up an entire lane width as it goes through the intersection. And that created a lot of confusion as this westbound lane pretty much was lined up with the eastbound lane. In this configuration, the eastbound lane also had a similar issue where when it needed to access the Bowen Island Marina, it would actually go into the opposing lane of traffic. This was an unregulated counterflow lane, or is. That's currently how it operates. With the realignment, so with the rock wall in and the two lanes shifted up, we can bring those two offloading lanes pretty even with the lanes on the west side. But when we do that, you can see that the eastbound lane would get directed into the ferry marshalling lane. So to address this issue with the ferry marshalling lane, the traffic safety review had a recommendation to remove ferry marshalling and make that a dedicated eastbound through traffic lane. And that is what staff is supporting as well, and that's what it would look like here. The markings on this side would be hashed to allow for ferry marshalling to enter this lane when it is time to load. However, if council decides not to remove the ferry marshalling, there would be two alternatives to keep the ferry marshalling in this section here, and that would be to maintain a solid line between the westbound and eastbound traffic. The concern here is that the eastbound lane would hit the solid line and not really know where to go, other than into the parked ferry marshalling cars. The second alternative would be to use a dashed line, which is the standard marking for a line where a car can cross over. But this would also cause confusion because the westbound traffic coming off the ferry would also see a dotted line as with the eastbound traffic. So it's just not very clear either way. Either way, alternatives 2 and 3 still do not comply to Transportation Association of Canada safety standards. So for those reasons, staff recommend that we go with alternative 1, which is to remove the ferry marshalling and convert it into a dedicated eastbound through lane.
I've got a question if anybody else doesn't. How many car spaces?
That's what I was gonna ask, yeah.
How many car spaces are going to be removed?
We estimate 5 to 8, depending on the size of the cars.
And how many spaces can the whole ferry marshalling area accommodate now?
I don't know that number. You mean to the end Castle School?
Yeah.
I don't know that number. But
But it's more than what the ferry takes.
Well,
So,
yeah.
so
Yes.
I guess my concern is that this won't reduce the
No,
marshalling below
no.
100 or to just 100, which means there's no overload.
yeah, I don't know the exact number, but the question of will this reduce the ferry marshalling capacity below what we need? And Public Works has confirmed that it won't.
Two questions. The alternative is assuming that the hydro pole is removed. No?
The hydro pole is on the inside of this corner here.
So it doesn't have to be removed in order to make this work?
And we had to design it around the hydro pole because BC Hydro has already said they will not remove it. So this was designed with that in mind.
All right. And then the second question relates to the pickup zone. Could you pull up a picture with the pickup zone, the drop-off zone, or whatever it is? Because you've got one in there.
It's hard to make out here, but it would be
Yeah.
this section.
Yeah. I've been getting questions from the public about whether it might make sense to extend the pickup drop-off zone farther along Cardena Road in order to get it away
Yes.
from Bow and Trunk Road.
That's an excellent question. But the property located here has a driveway that encroaches onto the right-of-way and has affected the design of this road for that reason.
Could part of parallel parking on that side of the road be also used for pickup drop-off?
This portion here,
Yeah.
it could be. It's one lane space, whereas here it's a lane and a half to allow for pedestrian movement. It's going to be physically protected from the vehicle lane.
Yeah, I think the thinking was that if we end up with the roundabout at the corner of Cardena and Cardena, that people could come down, they could pick up, drop off, they could continue on and flip around the roundabout rather than hitting parallel parked cars.
Oh, like a through lane?
Yeah,
That if if this were to be a pickup drop-off lane, very much like in Horseshoe Bay, if there's another person dropping off in front of you, you have to pull out anyways.
anyway.
So you have to have a through lane next to your pickup drop-off lane. Anyways, yeah. So either they pull out here because there's a retaining wall and the driveway in the way, or not. They would still need this through lane to pull out
Right.
to get to the roundabout.
But perhaps just, I know this isn't relevant to the discussion at the moment, which is focused on Bow and Trunk Road, but maybe as this moves forward, if that could be kept in mind, because even if somebody does have to pull out, I think that there are merits in having that whole thing
Well, yeah.
be pick up, drop off, and accommodating the driveway.
A continuous, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, ideally, the original design actually also had a sidewalk that also went along, so it's a more protected pedestrian connection. But I think the opportunity to remove this driveway has passed because this house has been constructed and the driveway is where it is now. So we have to work around it.
Michael?
So where is the pedestrian crossing? Where the pedestrian crossing at the moment is quite close to trunk road, will we not going to move it up a little bit?
Yes.
So that if people, so that the first car wasn't now blocking one of your lanes?
Yeah, you're talking about the Cardina
Yes,
crossing?
yeah.
Yes, it's going to be moved to here, whereas right now,
It's,
yeah, it's so to allow at least one car to
Yes.
pull off of, out of the way of ferry unloading and still have pedestrians safely cross.
So my other question, which really isn't related to moving the ferry cars, but if there's the roundabout there and there's no sidewalk on the east side, is it safe to have pedestrians walking across the street at a roundabout? Because everybody that comes down the sidewalk that wants to go to their house on Venture or their house on Cardina, or to Bowen Lodge or to Sandy Beach is going to have to walk across through the roundabout. So
Or
I would-
before,
Just stay inside.
that's what they're doing right now.
Yeah, but you're gonna have them walking on the road with moving cars, which is what, the sidewalk, so I guess maybe we can have a discussion another day about, you know, how wide is it being widened? Is it going right to the property line on the east side? Into the grassy areas, which is.
So how wide is what?
On the east side of the road, are we actually gonna go in past the little swale ditch and actually go into the full road allowance width?
The other side of the road.
The other side.
The
yeah.
east side.
Sorry.
That's it.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. For the parallel lane? Parallel
Or
parking
for
lane?
the lane or room to put a sidewalk in or something.
No, there will be no sidewalk, it will just be the parallel parking lane.
So the parallel parking lane is gonna go right up to the edge of the road allowance.
Yeah, because the pedestrian area is effectively cut off by the driveway and the rock wall. So we're not continuing a sidewalk on the other side of the driveway because then you're encouraging people to walk out onto the street to get back to that side.
But you, well, okay, I think there's a whole safety issue for people that are going to Sun Point.
Right,
They
right
walk
now.
along the sidewalk
Mhm.
and they go around.
Yeah, and then walk around the roundabout.
Well, down below.
Yeah,
where
so
nobody goes.
essentially they're supposed
But
to
they won't.
cross once they get dropped
Walk
off.
down the road.
Yeah, they're supposed to cross the sidewalk and walk
Okay,
down.
and then how do they get to,
They can cross when there's the.
so you're gonna
where
put a
they
marked
cross on this
crosswalk and
side.
everything in there?
We could probably put a crosswalk.
Well, just think about the
on this
safety of
side.
people walking across a roundabout.
Well, I have to walk
They're gonna walk
across.
around it.
I would also, but that's not the discussion.
I know.
But it's something
I was
definitely,
starting,
yeah.
No, I just wanted to throw it up as something
Yeah.
that had concerned me when I saw the other report. So there's a motion. Sorry, Simone.
I just had a question. I think, Emma, I remember from the consultant's report, the traffic safety consultant's report, the engineers, that there was a problem with the crosswalk in that you couldn't see straight across it. And I'm wondering why it's being moved down a little bit. Yeah, why it's being moved down a little bit instead, or will people still continue just to go straight across, or will we find out?
Yeah, there's a number of reasons we went with this configuration. Well, there was limited things we could do with that BC hydro pole.
Right.
We can relocate it. And then we also wanted to keep enough space for a car to pull over and not hit people while they're crossing. And then on this side, we also have a utility pole that would be in the way if we left the crossing at this
Right.
point.
Okay, good,
And there's
thank you.
the old cherry tree
Yeah,
that we don't want to touch.
right.
So this, moving it back gives a much clearer
Okay.
view, sight line.
Thank you.
And
I
just a
I
comment.
forgot about those poles.
And just
So
a
are we
comment on
dealing
that.
with the ferry marshalling, or are we getting into the design of Cardina? Because that is a different discussion.
The only purpose of this report was to talk about the ferry marshal.
That's what I was talking about.
Well, the crosswalk isn't the ferry marshalling. Is it?
No.
So are we on to the ferry marshalling questions? Because that's the issue we're being asked to address.
Can I just follow up on Councillor Fast's comment about moving it down? What I've noticed about the current situation now is what I've noticed is where the telegraph pole is, the way that's been left is there's a rise in in the pavement, and it's like a virtue, like it gives, it's a block, so you can't
Yeah.
do the shortcut. So I'm just wondering if that maybe could be maintained or retained when we go forward, just because it really prevents
does.
you from cutting it.
Yes.
So it will encourage us all to
There
stay
will
within
be
the-
barriers,
Yeah.
physical barriers. That mound should be fixed after, BC Hydro needs to actually lower the pole a bit, it's sticking out too much. So after they fix it, they'll fix the ground around it, then there'll be barriers put up. But yeah, it will be maintained so that you can't just shortcut into the traffic.
Can we also go to bring it back to the conversation about the trunk road? Could you go back to, yes. So I just wanted to bring an observation that was made at the Transportation Committee. And in the future also will, the waiting room facility will be upgraded. And if we were to remove the ferry marshalling, that might give more opportunities there for when it comes to redevelopment. Maybe there might even be enough space to be able to bring the bus down and bring that around on the BC Ferries property so it could come down and drop off. So that was,
Brings more options.
yeah, so a possible pro on that side.
Simone?
I'm happy to make the motion. People are ready?
I'm happy to second it.
Okay. The motion as written, that council direct staff to remove ferry marshalling on Bowen Island, Trunk Road, east of Cardina Drive.
There's seconder? Maureen?
Morning.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
May I make either a suggestion or an additional motion? I'd like there to be some sort of communication to the public regarding this before any steps are taken to remove ferry marshalling on Bowen Island Trunk Road. So that may be that council direct staff to prepare a communications plan regarding
rolling
the
out.
removal of ferry marshalling on Bowen Island Trunk Road.
I second that.
And I assume there's some issues with getting the traffic to start moving, to stop go light and all sorts of other stuff too, that will have to be done.
We have to finalize that with BC Ferries, but they wanted to see what we were going to do
What
first.
decision we need to make.
I think that's kind of inevitable.
Okay, so we have can we just take that to the direction of staff to develop?
No, I'd like resolution.
Okay, so read that resolution, Tyler.
That council directs staff to prepare a communication plan to communicate with the public before any steps are taken to remove ferry marshalling
In that
On
area,
Bowen Trunk Road.
in that
on
area.
Bowen Trunk Road.
Well,
You would have that one?
Yeah.
Do we have a seconder for that?
I
We do.
seconded.
All those, any more discussion?
and it just, could you just clarify where it is? Because if you start talking about taking ferry traffic off the trunk road,
East of
We could
Cardina.
say,
Here,
east of
Just
Cardina,
at the intersection.
okay?
Yeah.
or you could say
So it's
the same as east of Cardina Drive.
East of
Okay.
Cardina.
At the Cardina Road intersection.
How about if it says exactly the same as the one above?
Yeah, just
Maybe
maybe.
Bowen Island Trunk Road, east of Cardina Drive.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, take the same wording.
And then it's everything east.
Okay.
Friendly
Okay.
amendment.
So once more, Tyler, with enthusiasm, saying.
I'll do my best. That
Make 'em laugh.
council directs staff to prepare a communication plan to communicate with the public before any steps are taken to remove ferry marshalling on the Bowen Island Trunk Road east of Cardina Drive.
Perfect.
All those in favor? Okay. And then from the consent agenda, 3.14, which now I have to find, has to do with the parking spots on Cardina Road. Is the plan to actually remove, maybe that, have you got the picture up there, Emma,
That one?
around us? Yeah. So that's the parallel parking all the way down there?
on this side, and then, yes, there
Then
will be the
both
bus bay up here, and then I think past the library, from the Cove Commons on, it will be parallel parking.
Okay. So the recommendation, which I think is being supported, if I've read this correctly, is that we limit it to 3-hour parking all the way down that road. So my reason for pulling it is there's handicap parking there right now, and I don't see any other close space for somebody who has a disability sticker to park near the ferry. So,
That will at least one disabled parking spot long-term will be maintained in that area.
I think there's 2 there right now, isn't there?
I believe there's one in the library lot.
No, Jody's nodding that there's 2 in front of the info center.
There's two?
But they're angled, so now I'm gonna end up with just one parallel, so.
Yeah. This was flagged for further consultation. The exact
So-
number and location. of
So by
this.
passing the resolution to make it all short-term parking, does not include the 2 spaces for the handicap.
No, but for clarity, I guess we can amend that.
But so I would, and I'm just wondering, there's people with handicap stickers, but there's also people that are coming back late at night and stuff like that, that they're gonna have to hike all the way up the road and no lighting.
They all have flashlights.
Well, not necessarily. Umbrella and briefcase.
How many commuter spots are gonna be taken from that area? Probably 12?
There's 10 spots.
10?
basically right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's quite a chunk of 12-hour parking taken out there.
So this was spoken at quite length at the Transportation Committee. There was a lot of thoughtful discussion about it, especially for the 5:30 ferry crew. So, and we swayed from one side to the other. The problem with the 5:30 though is that they probably take up the spaces for most of the day, so that those coming back late at night anyways aren't able to park there. So there was discussion about definitely giving lots of notice so that those who have been relying on this as 5:30 parking could have some time to adapt. And I think the Transportation Committee tried to find sort of a halfway mark and then maybe trying to tie this in when all the work is done so that when there's a whole change anyways to the road, then it just comes as part and parcel. So that was where they were trying to find the halfway point, but there was definitely some concern and sensitivity to those who are relying on it probably at the beginning of the day and the end of the day. But it is 8 spots. My observation over the last week, I have to say, I think parking here is just getting tight everywhere. I was this afternoon, I needed to go into town, and I wasn't able to I got the last spot in the new parking space we have there on the lot for sale, you know? I thought, wow, everything's pretty
And that was
tight.
pretty full this afternoon.
Yeah, because there wasn't any parking in the commuter, you know, so, but then we also need space for the library and everything, so. Anyways, that's where the Transportation Committee came to, was yes, but let's phase it in slowly.
Now, we've changed the parking on the west side of the library. What's the situation there? Is that all 3 hour or is that 12 and 3?
It's all 3 on the west side of the
On the
library.
west side.
Yeah.
So
And library parking.
basically, there's no commuter parking until you get to the lot up the street.
Renaissance lot or.
Yeah, the Renaissance lot,
Ronnie's,
yeah.
Ronnie's lot.
Yeah.
I think we really need to see some improvement in our bus service basically at some point. I don't think.
And the timing of when all this would happen?
We were planning to phase it in with communication a month ahead of time before any changes took place. So, communications plan is ready to go.
So you're talking about changing it by the beginning of July or?
Mid-June, end of June.
Unless we're directed otherwise.
There's gonna be an uproar.
Yes, I'm not very comfortable with it.
I think it's going to go on 2 ways. I think this short-term parking's scarce and long-term parking's scarce, so I think.
And Melanie,
Yeah.
this was something that the Transportation Committee struggled with, right? It was over 2
Yeah.
meetings that they discussed
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
it is something.
It is,
2 meetings and email.
Yeah.
yeah,
And partly it was a equity kind of situation where right now there's people that, yes, they have to catch that early ferry, and there was sympathy, I certainly feel for them. However, by taking up those spaces, those same 8 cars usually use up those parking spots that could be used by people visiting the library or other businesses or, you know, everywhere else down there in the public area of the cove. So it's kind of 8 people, but we did build the new commuter parking, and we have the parking currently on lot 1. And some members did get up really early and went out and did some spot checking, and we found that there were spots elsewhere in the cove at 5:30 in the morning. So it's not like those people won't be able to park, for example, in the Renison beside the general store.
And this is the parallel struggle I think staff had, you know, looking
Yeah.
at it, it was exactly the same
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah. Emma?
And I think I'll just add, this might not have been pointed out in any staff reports, but a lot of those spots, they're difficult to enforce when it's long-term. So maybe it might be for a 5 p.m. commuter, a 5 a.m. commuter. Maybe it's from someone that parked there the night before. Maybe they were there for 2 days. It's a lot more difficult to enforce, given, you know, the enforcement resources we have. Whereas if it was short-term, you just go down there in one shift and you're able to pick out those that are not compliant.
We also have to look at the OCP and possibly the transportation plan, which is all asking them for parking to be removed from the center onto the periphery. So this is a long-term,
Yeah.
the long-term vision is being applied here, but it is a tough one.
The issue, the main concern I was having 2 spots for handicapped. So the resolution doesn't cover that off right now. So whether it's the council directs staff to change the 12-hour parking area in the west to short-term 3-hour parking, except for 2 handicap spots?
Well, wouldn't they also be 3-hour parking, or you?
No, I'm saying, somebody who has a handicap sticker on their car,
Mhm.
the closest place to park right now is that parking.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna make all the parking on the west side of Cardina Road 3-hour parking, then there's no place for a handicapped person to park to get onto the ferry.
Well, that should remain at 12 hours.
So there should be
Okay,
2
that's what I was
handicapped
asking.
Yeah.
12-hour ones.
Could we say 1 to 2? Because I'm not sure, or do we know how many are
There's 2
required?
there now.
Maybe we could have one that's long-term and one that's short-term, so that both uses are covered.
Given the
Yeah,
number,
we did have that conversation casually, that that was a suggested thing. One
Yeah.
was 12 and one was 3.
Yeah, makes sense.
So I'm just trying, in order to accommodate, the council directs staff to change the 12-hour parking area on the west side of Gardena Drive to short-term 3-hour parking, and provide for 1 long-term handicap spot.
And 1 short term.
Can I,
Well, the
can I
short
just,
term,
may I
yeah.
suggest just, with the exception of 1 12-hour dedicated handicap spot,
Okay.
and then carry on.
So where do you want to put the width in, Maureen?
So, to short-term 3-hour parking, comma, with the exception of 1 12-hour dedicated handicap spot, comma, in order to.
So we're gonna lose 1 handicap spot.
No,
No, this
No,
just
there'd
refers
still
to
be a
the time
short-term
span.
handicap.
and one handicap would be 3 hours, and,
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
okay.
but we don't have to
1 3 hour.
specify that.
Ah, all
So-
right, okay, I
Tyler,
guess.
do you want to have a go at reading that?
Yep, just need 1 second. That council directs staff to change the 12-hour parking area on the west side of Cardina Drive to short-term 3-hour parking, with the exception of 1 dedicated 12-hour handicap spot, in order to accommodate businesses and patrons of public amenities in Snug Cove.
Does somebody want to make that motion? Somebody want to second it? All right. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? want me recorded with the vote.
It's gonna be an interesting change.
May I ask why you're opposed?
Because it's too far to walk at night and in the early morning from way up there. If I happen to be using it, I'll just have to pay and park it here. Or I'll drive on.
Thank you, Emma.
Thanks, Emma.
Thanks, Emma. Okay, 7.2. The most exciting part of the meeting, right?
Yeah.
I know, I've got my financial statements in my hand, as Melanie was saying, waiting in anticipation. But, thank you. So, presentation of the financial statements this year was modified to be consistent with presentation of other municipalities. We made quite a few changes which were embraced by our auditors. The objective of the changes, as I mentioned, was to make the statements more succinct and easier to read and understand by users, and also to make them easier to compare to those of other municipalities. The preparation and presentation of the annual financial statements is the responsibility of the Finance Department, and the statements have been prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles as prescribed by the Public Sector Board and Chartered Professional Accountants of Canada. Boy, that was a mouthful. Okay. The statements are essentially comprised of 4 statements: statement of financial position, statement of operations, statement of change in net financial assets, and statement of cash flow, and with notes that accompany the financial statements. The notes are an integral part of the financial statements and basically provide expanded disclosures on the amounts reported in the statements. So the reported results in the statements cannot be fully understood without reading the notes. The statements also include 3 schedules. There's a schedule of tangible capital assets for the current year, and a segmented statement of operations for the current year and the previous year, which ties into our statement of operations. So in terms of financial overview, BIM's overall financial position improved in 2017 by $889,000, as is shown by the increase in our year-end accumulated surplus balance. That's the bottom line in the statement of financial position. Our net financial assets, which are a section in that statement, are an indicator of the amount of past revenues that are available to pay for future transactions and events, and is calculated as a value of financial assets minus liabilities. So BIM's net financial assets for 2017, or net financial asset balance at 2017 of $7.5 million, shows an increase of $242,000 over the previous year, and which is a further indicator of improved financial position. So in terms of our non-financial assets, which are essentially our fixed assets or capital assets, they totaled $57.3 million at the end of 2017, which is an increase of about $647,000 over the previous year. The increase is mostly due to capital additions during the year and is offset by disposals as well as amortization. And operational revenues for the year totaled $8.6 million in 2017, which is an increase of about $469,000 over 2016. The increase was primarily due to contributions that were received and recognized from Snug Cove House Society for the Miller Road sewer expansion, and also higher fees and charges in the form of permit fees from stronger construction activity. For 2017, there was an excess of operational revenue over expenses of $889,000. So that was our surplus for the year. BIM's cash balance at the year end was $244,000, which represented an increase of $72,000 over the 2016 year end balance. The net book of our tangible capital assets shown on our statement of financial position totaled $57.2 million at the end of December. The total of these assets represents BIM's investment in infrastructure, facilities, and equipment and other assets in order to provide services. In terms of our variance to budget, our revenues were actually short of budget by about $469,000. And again, we're talking PSAB statements, and that was primarily due to the budget. We had included grant revenues that we received and will receive for the water treatment plant. However, according to PSAB, we should only be recognizing that portion that we've spent or earned in grant revenue, so that was why we were actually short of the budget overall. And in 2017, our total operating expenses were less than budget by $162,000. And that was primarily due to having budgeted the water treatment pilot plant study in operating, whereas that was a capital item. And then that favorable variance was offset by some higher costs that were driven by high winter maintenance costs due to snow removal and basically an icy cold winter, salting, and some extraordinary legal costs related to the docks issues. And in terms of our reserves, BIM's statutory reserve fund balances increased from $5.3 million to $5.6 million. The largest increase was in the capital replacement and renewal reserve, where we put the 1.5% increase for infrastructure funding. Note 9 in the financial statements actually has a neat little schedule that we didn't have in past years, and it shows you your opening balance for each of the statutory reserves, what's been taken out of the reserves, what's been put into the reserve, and the interest revenue earned by the reserve. And that's kind of in a nutshell and summary is our financial results for the year. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have on this riveting, exciting topic.
And I could just add to that as background, financial advisory committee met with Raj and the auditors and went through the financial statements and is recommending that council accept the financial statements.
Thanks for that, Alison.
Maureen.
Thank you for note 9.
You're welcome.
That's information I've been looking for a while. Thanks.
So, no more questions? Okay then. Michael, would you like to make a recommendation at 7.2?
I would indeed. The recommendation is that the 2017 audit financial statements for Bowen Island Municipality be accepted by council.
I'll second that. Any more questions? All in favor? So now where's the table that nobody got?
I'll just let you go about next steps actually. So now that you've accepted the financial statements, we have to file them with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs by May the 15th. So we'll do that filing tomorrow. After Alison signs on I think I need the mayor's signature on the balance sheet. It's in the signature
We better do that
file
before I
over
go
there.
next
That
time.
would be great if we could do
Tomorrow.
that. Thank you.
And thank you to Raj, Shell, and Miriam for all the hard work.
Yeah, fantastic, great job.
Amazing.
Giving you an under the wire.
You could have started a month later, no.
No, I really liked the way it was clear as well, and I was glad to
Formatted,
see table 9, I forgot what it was called there, note 9.
The reserve
So that I
schedule,
could
yeah.
see what that was, because that's always been, you have to know about them in order to ask, and here it is, so thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
do most municipalities file tomorrow as well? Is it always been so long?
No, they file on time. You get a nasty letter if you do not submit on time. The mayor receives the letter to let him know that your finance department needs a slap on the wrist.
But they all come in tomorrow?
They do
No-
all, yeah.
No one.
A lot will flood in their door tomorrow, yes.
Yeah. Actually, I've already filed our LGD today. So the LGD filing is due tomorrow, which is the financial reporting, which takes, it was not the statements, because the statements themselves hadn't been approved yet, but so that's another big filing, which I was like, are we going to be able to finish it on time? And we did, so.
Yeah.
So the next big thing will be SOFI, which will come to council in June.
What is that?
SOFI is a statement of financial information, and it's the one that has payments to vendors over 25,000 in your total payments, and identifies staff members that are making more than 75,000
Right.
on it, and it also basically shows the council remuneration and expenses on it as well.
Right, that detail.
So that's being worked on right now, and we'll be bringing that forward in the end of June. Actually, we have until June 30th to file it. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Raj.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Bonnie, you're up next.
So the purpose of this report is that staff is requesting council's approval to place a portable toilet adjacent to Pebbly Beach to accommodate Bowen Island Municipality's recreation program participants and beachgoers from late June of 2018 to early September 2018. So a little bit of the background is that in late June of 2017, concerns about the lack of toilet facilities at Pebbly Beach were raised by community members with small children who spend time at the beach and by Bowen Island Municipality's Recreation Department summer camp staff. Following Parks, Trails, Greenways and Advisory Committee recommendation and subsequent council resolution, a portable toilet was placed on the northeast side of Senator Place in the road allowance adjacent to Pebbly Beach from the end of July until early September. And I have that beautiful image of the toilet there.
Yeah.
So it actually, when it was tucked away and the lattice was put up, and it really wasn't visible from any of the neighbors' properties. And once this out-of-the-way location was identified and the portable toilet was moved to that location, there were no complaints from neighboring properties. Also, we did monitor the odor from the porta potty weekly, and we added some lye, and it was pumped up out regularly every week. It was pumped up as well, and that was, there really was no odor, and it was hot. Like it was a hot period of time.
So you've got a recommendation for us?
If I may interject, Raj pointed out that we don't actually need a council resolution for this, as it was approved during the budget that was just
During
adopted.
the budget
So
process.
this is just more of an information
Oh,
report.
good.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was just going to get to that we'd sort of anticipated this cost, and we'd included it in our budget process. So there you go.
I stole your toilet thunder.
Yeah. Hey, we're not happy. Yeah.
I just want to say part of this, though, the communication strategy will be that we'll let the residents of Senator Place know that the toilet is coming back. So we'll give them warning, and it will be in the same location.
You're not going to paint green leaves and everything all over it too?
Not this year.
So headline reads toilet return.
And more.
Thank you.
No, that's great. Thank you, Bon.
We should have known that down the go for 8.1.
What was the
So correspondence 8.1 is wanting a sign at the crosswalk between the new steamship marina parking and the library lot. Bonnie, could you see if Emma's still here?
She's probably on
went
the
out.
8:30 ferry. She probably ran.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, so,
Can I suggest maybe that this be referred to the communication team? Emma sits on it, as do I. What we do know is, under the Motor Vehicle Act, we can't put signage up precluding somebody from crossing, but maybe we can come up with some great tagline to bring
Yeah.
back to council.
I was thinking, like, if we could use the branding in a bit of it.
Yes, there had been discussion of that previously in the communication team, and the notion was to use the concept of Islanders Wait. And
He said they don't.
some version of that.
With the picture of the slug. Anyway, we've got a conversation going about that already.
So the notion was that whatever we did was not obviously going to be viewed as official signage, but it would be whimsical and it would get the message across and it wouldn't be heavy-handed. So if council's happy with that, I'll take it back to communications team and get it going.
and I would hope we talk to the RCMP.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
Emma
do
did
that.
that.
Yeah, we'll run it by the RCMP.
Yeah.
So when I put something up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm trying to find out just precisely where the one is in Westview.
Well, if you can, there's a
Yeah, I will
picture.
pursue that.
There was one there at one point. I remember it being there, but I can't remember how formal it was.
Sure it was Bowman?
Huh?
Okay.
Maybe not.
Well, we could task you with going up to the museum and archives and go through all the pictures of the cenotaph.
Yeah, do that.
Does the referral to the communications team require a resolution?
I would ask that just for tracking of council.
So we move that we refer this to the communications team for resolution?
For development of of whimsical signage that is vetted through the RCMP and Public Works.
And will that be sufficient approval? Or does it have to come back to council?
Not the way I ordered it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, what did Kathy say?
That council refer signage regarding crossing Bowen Island Trunk Road to the communication team for development of whimsical signage vetted through the RCMP and Public Works.
Could we change whimsical to brand related? Would that be okay? I know, I'm sorry.
How about whimsical brand related?
We can do both.
Yeah.
I've never been able to put whimsical in a resolution before.
Brand is pretty whimsical in itself.
Whimsical. Don't use the slug because he's slow. And we want people to cross quickly.
I'll second that. Oh, did some.
I'll move it.
I'll second it. Thank you.
All those in favor?
Can we just,
Oh, sorry.
just as an information, I don't want to refer, but if you could just if Transportation Committee could just hear about what's going on. This has been discussed at length, and they'll be very happy to see a resolution. I just think they would be very interested to see what's coming out of it. They don't need to be referred, just as an information.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I missed the move and the seconder.
So,
I second it.
Thank you.
Maureen as well. So, all in favor? Okay.
Thank you for giving me whimsical after 18 years.
Watch out, it's gonna be in every one.
So 9.1 is a recommendation from the Committee of the Whole this afternoon that council accept the design development report presented at the Committee of the Whole meeting of May 14, 2018, and the council approve the community center project proceeding to gate 4 at a cost not to exceed $155,000 as provided for in the 2018 financial plan.
I'll move that.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Refer everybody in the audience to the video of this afternoon's meeting. All in favor? Okay, and 9.2 is the memorandum of understanding between the Bowen Island Municipality and the Bowen Island Arts Council. And this is to, moving forward as a group together to fundraise and then the operation and the programming of the facility. There's a few small amendments were made to it at the Committee of the Whole this afternoon. So the recommendation is that the mayor and CAO be authorized to execute the memorandum of understanding between the Bowen Island Municipality and the Bowen Island Arts Council for development, management, and operation of the Bowen Island Community Center project.
I would say as amended at the May 14th Committee of the County meeting.
Okay, did you get that amendment, Tyler? As amended at the
May 14th Committee of
Committee of the Whole, as amended in the May 14th Committee of the Whole. Thank you. Somebody, Gary, you want to move
Sure,
that motion?
I'll move that.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Nobody wants, I'll second it then. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. All right. 9.3, with the chair of the emergency executive, what's your title?
Recommendation from the May 14th Committee of the Whole meeting that council accept the 2018 hazard risk and vulnerability assessment
as amended at the May 14th Committee.
as amended at the May 14th Committee of the Whole.
I second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? I didn't stick my hand up.
It's
so
okay.
I was there to vote in favor.
All right.
I don't have to stick my hand
Okay.
up. It's a training, the mayor that sits up here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was unanimous? Is that was unanimous? Okay, thank you.
9.4. 9.4, Snug Cove improvements working group minutes, which are distributed on the table. Who would
Yes.
wish to speak to?
I think between, and I'm sorry, because the Snug Cove Improvements Working Group, the scheduled meeting took place on Friday. And probably one of the key ones, and this follows a meeting that the EDC had with a lot of the local merchants, that Snug Cove Improvements Working Group recommend that council direct staff to have 2 portable toilets installed in Snug Cove near Village Square, requiring a funding of up to 10,000, and that council direct staff to explore with GC Cherries opportunities for reimbursement of costs for these public toilets. I think one of the things that the EDC, I won't say stumbled upon, but it came up, that restaurants and retail were just getting overwhelmed by being sort of public convenience for the amount of visitors that we've got. So given the short notice to actually do something about this, which I think is a demonstration of faith as well to these merchants and restaurateurs, that we do need to put a couple of these portable toilets. And I think the area we looked at was going up the hill from the square. Just where as you go up and you see, as you go up the hill, yes, and there's an area which is reset at benches there right now. And I think we'd say, look, this is something that we need to do for this summer, but really, that we need to find a better solution than this. This might be something we're doing for this summer, but we need to find a more workable solution. Those lineups go, as we know, right the way up there past the school, and the nearest public washrooms are just as you're about to board the ferry. So unless you're going to use the Ruddies or the pubs or anybody else's, it's pretty short order. No fun. So that was the recommendation we were looking for support, and I think that was an excellent response to something very much needed by our local merchants. Do you like me to read out the rest, or do you want to deal with these one at a
Well,
time?
let's deal with them one at a time. So our CAO would like to make a comment.
Well, we don't have this budgeted for in 2018, and as well, there have been some concerns, I think, just a brief chat this morning talking to staff about this. I would prefer if we could refer it to staff and report back at the next council meeting. 1, to find a funding source, and 2, to get an actual cost estimate of what this would cost, and also review of an appropriate place for these.
Okay.
And I guess just a couple of comments from mine. I'm not sure, there are already other toilets behind the baseball field and in opposite in Crippen Park behind the festival field. There's 2 sets of public washrooms.
That's a long way to go, though, if you've got.
But and I guess I'm confused because the report talks about the need for tourists, and yet if somebody's wandering around the cove, it's much easier to walk back down to the ferry terminal than it is to hike up to the picnic benches. So is this for the tourists or is this for people in the ferry lineup?
If I may speak to that, this is for people in the ferry lineup, whether they are tourists or residents.
Yeah.
And if they, for example, are stuck in that ferry lineup at 4 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon when somebody's out there flagging and going to Crippen Park or right down to the ferry lineup or into Village Square looking for a toilet that may or may not be occupied, those folks are seriously inconvenienced, and goodness knows where they're peeing at the moment. The suggestion from the local business people, they had a number of concerns. The top one was housing for their employees. The second one was toilets. It seemed to be an extremely concrete step that we could take to address those concerns. We knew that the funding wasn't budgeted. We thought that given the priority to the business people in this community and to the residents who end up in that lineup, that presumably the funds could be found somewhere. And what we based that amount on was the 2,700 and odd that Bonnie's report flagged as being required for the portable toilet at Pebbly Beach. And that was for, I think, late June through September. And with this, we were hoping that something could be in place from May through September.
End of September.
So it's just a, say, summer.
It's summer. Yeah. That's initially. I mean, it might go somewhere else.
I would make the motion that we refer it to staff for a report at the next council. Can you turn the report around to the next council meeting?
I think we can probably pull comments together on the motion. And if we have that time, then we'll also reach out to BC Ferries to see if there's any possibility of them letting it as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just for info, the next FAC meeting is June 8th, if you want that raised at that conversation, whether staff would like a parallel conversation. I'm just flagging that
I think
date.
if this is time sensitive, and it sounds like it is, we should probably reach out to them before the next council meeting.
So your wording of your recommended motion to
I'm just going to speak in favor of referring it to staff. I've been hearing about the pressure on local businesses and their washroom facilities for years, and I also note that we just moved the traffic back further from the BC Ferries washrooms by 8 spaces or whatever. But I also think that it would help people decide to take the bus or to bicycle or to walk if they knew that there were public washrooms that they could rely on and not feel uncomfortable asking to use, or just to have a little bit more security about their trip being perhaps a little longer. So I think it would be great to refer it to staff, and I'd be happy to move that if somebody would like me to.
Maybe I'm just doing this on the fly here, but the recommendation from the South Cove Improvements Working Group regarding the installation of 2 portable toilets for June to September inclusive be referred to staff for comment and reporting back at the May 28th meeting, and include cost estimate, discussion of BC Ferries, and review of the location.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get that? I did.
The camera guy.
Because that was on the
I
fly.
have
Your
one
camera or
question.
light's not on.
It's being broadcast live. I did actually forget to turn the backup on, so
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's solid.
I have one question. Why was 2 toilets chosen instead of 1?
One, I agree. If it's an emergency situation.
I guess
that's
it's-
right.
We figured that you might cut us back to 1.
Let's call a marketing ploy.
How long a lineup do you want?
Because I think if we treat this like a pilot year, then with 1 toilet, we can get a better sense of whether there's a need for more. We can always add 1 if we need it.
We'll get a cost for 1 and 2, and then report back to
Great,
council.
great.
Yes, I think.
Okay, then I'm
Grant,
happy to make that motion with that added cost for 1 and 2 toilets.
And I can have the luxury of seconding it.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Just it's like European places where you want people to be walkable villages and walkable public places have washrooms. So
They do.
that's good.
BC Ferry lineups also
Have
have
washrooms.
portable toilets for the Nanaimo crowd.
All those in favor? Opposed? Okay.
The next one was one I think we just wanted to put on record, because there we are doing snug code improvements, and we recommend that staff follow up on the removal of that hydropower pole in Cardina and Trug Roads before this becomes a subject of a cartoon. or some fortunate accident with a significant vehicle which will remove the obstacle once and forever. So we put it down because you know, eventually it's going to get to the end of just being downright silly. What we'll do is plant flowers on it or something.
Can I maybe suggest changing it slightly and ask that the mayor and the public works manager report back to the
We did in our discussion believe that actually the mayor was having some discussion. So if crafting it in that way, I think what we want to try and do is put this out there as something that's going to need to be, put it on our agenda, and in that, I don't think we would be very pleased that if that's, do that as you suggested.
There will need to be some political pressure because both the mayor and Bob have gotten nowhere with BC Hydro regarding this poll, and I think they would appreciate some assistance from council on this.
Resolution, where is it in here? I'm missing it.
It's not,
the second stage.
Oh,
The
sorry.
Snuff Improvements Working Group recommended the council direct staff to follow up on removal of the hydro pole on Cardina Drive at Trunk Road. Now, are you suggesting that we
I would say
refer
that
this and ask for a report from the mayor and?
a verbal report, so the mayor will be just back, but
Yeah.
he has been in touch in the last week or so about this, and I think he would appreciate the chance to vent.
Great.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's good, as I said before, it becomes a matter for the erstwhile cartoon skills of the undercurrent.
So maybe we.
So I will move that,
Defer and ask the mayor and.
Mayor to report verbally on the update council.
This may be, that's relevant, was about to say.
sure.
Sorry, so that would ask the mayor to update us on the, verbally on
Yeah, that council requests the mayor for a verbal report on the removal of the hydro pole at Cardina Drive and Trunk Road.
Thank you.
At the May 28th meeting.
At the next meeting.
I'll second that if it hasn't been already.
It hasn't been seconded by Maureen. Any discussion? All those in favor?
The next one was the community recreation summer camps. They wanted to use part of the Lockbrook wall as a chalk wall for a trial period of 2 months. And we thought, well, it's a trial period of 2 months. Why wouldn't we recommend it and get public feedback? And we would propose that we approve the use of a lock block wall or chalk wall by the community recreation summer camps for a trial period of 2 months.
Chalk art?
Easy for you to say.
I
Chalk
was,
art.
when
I second that.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask if this one was time sensitive, being as the summer camps won't start for another month and a half.
It's time sensitive in the sense that the recreation staff wanted to be able to plan for this. So it came up at the right time in terms of their planning process.
As we deal with the matter of cove aesthetics, we suggested that whereas the library and Cove Commons both
Hang on,
have...
are we
Hang on.
we're voting
Oh, sorry,
on?
you haven't voted on it
Okay,
yet?
so,
No.
so the motion has been made that council approve the use of the block wall for chalk art by the community recreation summer camps for a trial period of 2 months. Do we
And I
want to be
seconded.
specific? I guess summer camps, with children. Okay. Any discussion?
Yeah, just a warning. My children will be enrolled on Mondays, and one will be in the 6 to 9 group, and the other will be in the 9 to 12.
Excellent. So look at the level of supervision.
There's chalk art appearing on there already.
God bless.
Yeah.
The advantage of working with the recreation summer camps is that they will remove the chalk art at a certain point, and then they'll do it again, and then they'll remove it. So the appeal of the transitory nature of chalk art was really strong.
And each week they have a different theme. So one
Exactly.
week is
That's
sea,
it.
and the
Yeah.
next week's cooking,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
It will not be boring.
So, all those in favor?
Ding.
Thank you very much. On the next one, moving right along, whereas the library and Cove Commons both have cedar shingled roofs.
We're
And
on page 3 now.
Yep.
Sorry. And whereas adequate funds have been allotted for this capital project in the 2018 budget, therefore it be resolved that the Snug Cove Improvements Working Group recommend that council approve the installation of cedar shingles on Boulevard Cottage and Wharflinger Shack. It's just a simple matter of these buildings are grouped together and
No,
you've
they're
got,
not.
well, they are within proximity, it's part of the cove. And if that is the look of the cove, you know, they fall in the same aesthetic group, that they likewise have the same roofs.
May I just ask a question, Bonnie? Is for the Boulevard Cottage, is cedar shingles currently budgeted for that roof? Okay. So it's
Okay.
this.
Okay, well, that's done.
I would,
I know we had both of those, I think,
Oh.
budgeted, but I didn't know that they were for cedar shingles or not. Yeah,
We budgeted quite high, just
okay,
with anticipation that it might be single shingles in keeping with the form and character of
okay.
the buildings.
I think form and character is a good
Thank you.
description.
so, when you,
And part of the reason that we have this as a motion was Bonnie recommended that we put it in the form of a motion, given the transition between parks and public works. I believe that was part of the rationale. Is that correct?
Just to make it clear, right?
Yeah.
so putting myself on the speakers list, I'm, because the Boulevard Cottage is right next door to the Cope Commons and the library, both of which have cedar shingles on them, or shingles, I'll go along with that one, though there's some very nice artificial shingles out now that look just like cedar shakes. But I can't support putting cedar shakes down in the wharfage shack. I think that would be much more appropriate to have a metal roof on it, and that would fit in with all the buildings that are right around it. So, and would be very easy to clean, and birds won't, be easy to clean off when the birds mess it up, et cetera, et cetera. So, I'm just saying, if somebody makes the motion, I'm going to ask it to be separated into two.
If I may say, I think, and I can hear Roger's voice in my head right now, this is operational in nature, and I don't think we need a council resolution, and it should be a discussion between the departments.
Absolutely. The idea was to bring these things
Yeah.
forward, we move it forward and we get it done.
Yeah, I think we can say a definite yes to Boulevard Cottage, but I'd like to get Bob and Bonnie's input into the working group.
Yeah.
Shed.
I have one comment, and that's that the Boulevard Cottage is a heritage building, that's why it was
Yes.
preserved, and I don't know from the photos I'm running through in the back of my head that any of those cottages did have cedar shingles back in the day, and I would just ask that that be part of the thinking, is to keep the heritage character of that cottage was preserved the way it was because it was Old Bowen, and it did have, so just that the original character of the roof be taken into account. And I don't want to, I'm going to leave it up to staff too, but just that I don't know if it was cedar.
What would it have been?
But it might have been way
Might have been
back,
an
right?
old roofing or something.
It could
Well,
have been shakes too.
Well, we'll look into it.
Yeah.
I think it's
Enhancement
Bob and
change.
Bonnie and I have to meet anyways
Yeah.
for the transition, so that'll be, and we'll add that too.
Yeah, it's form and character really, is that's the end
Yes,
goal, isn't
it
it?
is. And to move this along. And lastly, that the Snow Cove Improvements Working Group recommend that council direct staff to ensure that integrated planning takes place for the Cove Commons area, including landscaping, parking, pedestrian safety and signage. All around Cove Commons is not too brisk, and that there are some work being done or looked at by some groups, and really we need to look at that area in its totality. So however we could move towards integrated planning for that entire space.
Yeah. Well, Bonnie has been, as of Friday afternoon, appointed to the Cove Commons, I forget what the name of the group
Improvements.
is. Yeah, to look at the plantings and the landscaping, so she'll be an integral part of that, those decisions.
Are we moving that, or is that just going?
Well,
It's
these are
already-
just minutes, I don't know that we necessarily.
Yeah, it sounds like staff are on the committee.
Okay, so are we going to go through with this resolution? No, or that?
I don't think we need to, because Bonnie happily agreed to sit on their subcommittee.
Because the only thing I thought was missing from those was also the transit, the bus the bus depot area.
Yeah.
That could also be an element that's also discussed.
That's a good idea. And I don't know if that is the group to do it, but I think it's something that you and Emma and Bob and I should need to discuss.
But part of that integrated,
Yeah.
because
Master
there's been
plan.
discussion about a shelter or a bench or whatever, so.
Absolutely, from one end to from kind of right the way through to the boundaries of where the car parking is. So we have a common approach which encompasses and try and does as much as possible without making it look as though we're broken up into little tiny lots where opposing factions have launched their latest pet ideas. So we've now got one
Master
total
You're looking
plan.
at the linchpins.
Okay,
Yeah.
and we're now half an hour overtime.
Can I just mention, Snow Cove Improvements met for 1 hour and generated 5 resolutions. It might be frightening if you meet for any longer.
And that was without the help of the mayor, who was absent.
All right, so that's it
Thank
for
you.
9.4.
Thank you.
10.1, update on Metro Vancouver.
Metro Vancouver. The Metro Parks met on Wednesday, May 9th, and there was a delegation to the Metro Parks Committee from Defend Island Forest. The presentation is included in your agenda package. You can take a look at it. The only element that's missing from what they presented to Metro Parks is that there were 2 video components that were just amazing, just very, very amazing. Something like Murray Atherton. Drone footage, looking up Howe Sound, going all around from top of Mount Gardner. The committee was very impressed by the presentation. They were somewhat puzzled as to whether there was a specific ask from the group. They pointed out a number of issues, including advising the group to make sure that First Nations were on their radar. And things were left with remarks from various committee members expressing interest. 2 in particular spoke with the members of Defend Island Forest afterwards and made some rather interesting suggestions. So this is going to move forward in ways that I'll bring back to you guys as things develop.
Great.
That's it.
Super.
On Islands Trust, I haven't got anything to report, and there's 2 information items from the Chair of Islands Trust that you can read in your information package.
Yeah, I just wanted to make those points as 12.25 and 12.26 are letters that the Chair of the Islands Trust submits to senior government with advocacy for the whole Islands Trust area which we are in. So one of them was about comments and input about the changes to the Agricultural Land Reserve and the Agricultural Land Commission. So it was promoting the rural nature. And the second one, nature of the islands, and the second one was about the potential for oil spills and the needs to be able to clean them up and to keep safe and clean beaches, and also about how I noticed that there was a letter from North Vancouver in here too about the cost to municipalities should there be a spill if there wasn't enough in the insurance kitty for Kinder Morgan. Anyway, that's going outside a little bit, but it kind of overlapped. So.
Options for the lockbox wall we've already dealt with.
Actually, there's a point to add to that. The proposal from Recreation is for that 2-month period this summer. The school, BIX, is considering preparing a collaborative projects policy using the municipal infrastructure of the lock wall. And if they decide to go forward with it, it should be coming back to council more formally in about a month's time.
Okay. So 10.3 is about BIX.
Yeah.
Okay, 10.4, you're on again.
Very briefly included in your agenda package is an application to the BC Economic Development Association for a marketing award. It was prepared, the application was prepared in large part by Chris Staples of Rethink and vetted by a couple of people, including Marie Atherton from Bowen
Tourism Bowen Island.
Tourism Bowen Island. And the decision will be made regarding the awards on June the 10th, I believe. And it's well worth clicking through some of the links. It's quite fun what they've done in preparing the application.
10.5, Councillor Kale.
Yes, probably as many of you will know, our water taxi ceases operation as of May 18th. One of the reason is largely the Harbour Green docks in Cole Harbour.
So this is English Bay Lawn.
There's a very loyal group who are actually meeting shortly with the Parks Board, headed up by Shona de Cordova. And I think it would be appropriate, it would be such a shame to lose this form of transport. It really would. I caught it for 4 years, and I know when it stopped running for a period of time, I had to go out and buy a car. So I mean, our Great Sympathy has a very loyal group, and what they're asking for is our support in terms of writing a letter to the Parks Board to see if they will assist. Speaking to Shauna this morning, it would appear that Shauna de Cordova is the lady who's heading this up. And it would appear that the people she was talking to, the Parks Board, weren't even aware that this service has been running for any significant time. Well, as we all know, there's been hundreds or thousands of dockings, if you think of the amount of runs that they've had over many years. So what they're asking for, and the recommendation is that staff be directed to write a letter to Vancouver Parks Board, encouraging the board to resolve docking issues for Bowen Island commuters. They would certainly welcome our support in this effort to see if the Parks Board could make this dock, which I believe is having some repairs done at the moment, but could make this dock available to the small craft, which has managed to operate honestly without any inconvenience and pretty faultlessly as far as the Parks Board is concerned. So it would be very convenient, it would be very helpful, and I think a tangible sign of support for this group if the mayor could write a letter, or a letter could be written under the mayor's name to the Parks Board asking for their support.
Is this, so they're being removed permanently? Even it's not just while they fix up this dock?
No, it's a sort of notice to cease and desist.
So Shauna Wilton is the person that is going to organize a meeting, and Michelle de Cordova is the person.
That's what you said, Michelle, wasn't it?
Yeah, I just saw her.
Yeah, Shauna Wilton, yes, and it's Michelle de Cordova.
And Michelle's the one you were talking
Yeah.
to, not Shauna.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, this is the group, and I've been in touch with them. I spoke to Michelle this morning, not Shauna. Spoke to Michelle this morning, and I know they're planning. I think it may even be today that they're having their meeting. And of course, before that letter goes, they will brief us on how that meeting went. But it was meant to be sort of a friendly meeting with a group of concerned citizens to meet with the Parks Board. So obviously that was fine for an opener.
So it's a meeting with the senior staff of the Parks Board.
Yeah, well, yeah, they were meeting in the Parks Board office.
Yeah. I wasn't sure whether you were,
I was just staring.
So that's the recommendation, council could support it, in support of this group.
I've just got a little trouble with the wording resolve docking issues rather than
Support docking issues, do you know?
supports English Bay Launch being able to dock a small vessel, or?
I worded that, and I purposely
Okay.
worded it so we weren't supporting
Any
the
private
private
organization.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
supporting the commuters, not business.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And do you want it to come more so it's there's a resolution in there that council has requested
That's
staff.
probably, because it's
I think it would be a good idea.
Yeah, they're not resolving the docking issues because they've just basically said cease and desist.
So like we used for the other one, that council request a letter be sent to the Vancouver Park Board under the mayor's signature encouraging the board to resolve docking issues for Bowen Island commuters.
Yes.
I don't know if you're resolving them.
Well, the board could resolve them.
They can resolve them by allowing the boat
They-
to dock.
Yeah, it worked perfectly well until they did what they did, so if they could undo what they did, we could
Yeah.
get back to
It's
normal
basically,
operation.
I like that wording, it's supporting the Bowen Island community.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, but
Resolve or solve?
solve would be more.
Resolve means bring it back.
If
It's,
solvers put the whole weight of this on their shoulders, maybe they would not be so keen, but if they could just resolve this.
How about revisit?
No, resolve,
Resolve, okay.
revisit.
So Tyler, what is the motion, please?
That council request a letter to be sent under the mayor's name to the Vancouver Parks Board, encouraging the board to resolve docking issues for Bowen Island commuters.
If I may just add under the acting mayor's signature, because I don't think the mayor would appreciate not being at the, a letter going out under his name is not here,
Yes.
even if he supports it.
And you signature,
Under the
not
acting
name.
mayor, sorry?
Signature.
Under
Because
the acting
signed
mayor's
as
signature.
acting mayor of Bowen Island municipality, not Allison Ward.
Correct.
Under the acting mayor's signature.
Yeah.
Mm.
Thank you. Would you like me to read it again?
We got it? We're good? Or do you want me to do it?
Okay, we've got it.
Okay, all those in favor?
I just wanted one comment.
Did we get moved
So
and
it was,
seconded?
it was
That
moved.
was moved,
My-
we need
my-
a seconder.
But I didn't get a seconder.
Who said, my
Gary?
Gary?
Councilor
Can I also request that a copy gets sent to TransLink? We're trying to encourage them to think about the importance of our waterways, and we've also brought this to their attention that it would be helpful if they, perhaps they could also maybe make some locations available for water taxi.
And Jordan Sturdy's office is also aware of that, because he's always been an advocate of water.
So, copying our MLA and, with a copy.
I think that's a great idea.
Translate.
It puts a little bit more impact on it.
You might want to transfer, copy your MP too, because the TransLink issues all relate to the security issues for the port.
Sure.
Or
Maybe
Vancouver.
more than there.
And a copy sent to TransLink, our MP and our MLA.
Yeah.
And you're saying Port
Word
Vancouver?
the motion, so it's MP, MLA, and then translate.
Thank you.
Sorry.
In order of,
Yeah.
in descending order.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, put translated in, yeah, okay. I'll put those. All right, we'll do that again. All those in favor? Opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions from the public?
I thought we had a 10.6, I was going to do.
Oh, sorry,
update
dig
on
housing.
housing.
I've written so many notes on here, I forgot about that. Yeah, quick, LGL and update on housing.
So this might be going over some ground that Councillor Pass heard at your regional area conference. On the last day, the theme was housing. We had the Minister of Municipal Affairs, Lynn Robson, came and spoke. It was a very passionate and uplifting speech. They are hoping, she announced she's hoping to get through the legislature by June, the rental-only zoning, so that's going through, and a few more tools for municipalities to help out with, on the housing front, and more tools. She just gave hints, and she left that then to her staff later on to give more details. So we had Virginia Holden, the Director of Housing Policy in the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and then another, he's Raymond Kwong, and he's just now being appointed as director, to the provincial director for the Housing Hub. So this is their new arm. And that was really, I think, the most interesting part of the discussion for me. So if I go back and I look at my notes, so really they are now, Virginia Holden gave quite a bit of information about their 30-point strategy for affordability. it was very interesting, so Squamish was present, and they now have a 0% vacancy. So it was, you know, the stress was palpable for some of these conversations. What they're trying to do is stabilize the market, help renters, build partnerships. We've all heard that. But now they're really trying to put these new mechanisms into action. They've just launched their peer-to-peer training, so they will now be going out to municipalities and trying to connect directly with staff to give them a lowdown on the tools, and I thought that was really useful. So that was everything on that was on from the ministry. So what the tools that she went into discussion about were the innovative land use tools, such as the rental zoning. Okay, so I think they're really hoping to get some traction on that one. The peer-to-peer program. They're also trying to get some traction on the revitalization bylaw, so that if you are able to do your bylaw to sort of say this area we'd like to revitalize, you're then allowed to be able to give tax exemptions, and they will now expand that to include that you'd be exempt from paying your school property tax on those. So they're on an average door, so they now know that they're trying to encourage multi-family dwellings, so they call it a door, so a unit or a door. They're hoping to sort of see that you'd be able to start seeing a tax break of between $4,000 to $10,000 per door if you were to use that sort of thing, if you were able to give people, developers, a relaxation on property tax and school tax. The hotel tax, I know we don't really do that, but they've also used they're going to open that up so you're allowed to use those profits for affordable housing. So I know we have discussions about the long-term role of short-term rentals, but anyways, so that's another tool. Then the conversation went over to the housing hub, and I really thought this was really the most interesting part of the conversation. And I spoke with Raymond Kwong after, and he is willing and happy to, if he's still got time in his schedule, to come out and talk to us on the housing hub, on the role of the housing hub. And really it was through the area conferences that they're really disseminating this information on what the role of the housing hub will be. And they're tasked at, BC Housing will be doing everything outside of the private market, and the housing hub is really to look at what can the private sector do for affordable housing tenure and the rental. So what they're going to try and do now is partnerships with developers, faith groups, community groups, and their new strategy is what they're going to do. They'll come in and they will start to provide second mortgages for developers. So they will now no longer be tying what they've done in the past to get affordability, is they've tied something onto the title, saying this will be affordable housing in perpetuity. What they're going to say now is they will hold a second mortgage. So a first-time buyer or affordable or a family or household will apply, and perhaps they will get BC Housing will come in with them on 20% for the second mortgage. They will pay no interest or anything on that part of it. And when the unit is then sold, BC, the housing hub, will take that equity. So everybody gets a lift in the market. So those people who sell will be able to take some profit out of it, but so will BC Housing or the housing hub. They will take that and then reinvest in another project. And what they're trying to do now is they will take this second mortgage, they're going to take this, and they're also going to try and work with the pre-modular housing sector to see if they can then encourage developers to use that type of housing to bring the cost down. And what it is to incentivize developers from building high-end condos to building just affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
So I really kind of thought this was probably something very useful for Rowan. And it will be marketed at households between 50 to 100,000. They're targeting the middle income, so the missing middle. So
Can I just ask Melanie about that?
when the property sells first time, and everybody gets, as you said, something of a lift,
Yeah.
does that mean to say that the property after the first sale is now priced at market?
Yeah.
So if you like, it's the control aspect is not in perpetuity, it's only until the first sale.
Yeah.
Or
So-
until the second one is
No, because again, when they sell, right,
Can-
the housing company will take their bit out.
Yes, yes, so but does that mean to say then they would have to hold that property for a period of time? Because it would, last thing you would want is everyone taking advantage of this. And then very quickly doing the sale, okay, you've got your lift, everybody else has paid off. This property is now at market, which has somewhat thwarted the original intention of providing property.
I think that's a very good question to ask. I think, yes, that's probably one we should ask.
Okay,
Yes.
so that's just out there, that's just one of those issues.
Yes, it
But
was- it
just
wasn't
suddenly see
covered,
all
yes,
this
yeah.
property being flipped and then being at market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it may
But
be,
I think it's probably part of the pros, who
Mhm.
knows, but anyways,
Mhm.
that's the concept anyways. It's to encourage that missing middle development. So anyways, I kind of thought that might be an interesting fit for the island, and anyways, I think maybe reaching out to him would be a good start.
do they
Do you know
have
where he's
park?
based?
Sorry,
Do you know where he is based?
I didn't, but I think it's probably Victoria.
Or a
He
private
is the,
sector?
no, he is the provincial director for the housing hub, and I think he's
You have
just
to
been.
be contacted?
Yes, I have.
Because
Yes,
if you pass
yeah, absolutely. And I will, before, this was, a lot of people had a lot of interest in this, and so they'll be sending around the PowerPoint presentation, but I would suggest that we probably get an email off quite quickly, because we would
Yeah.
have to invite him, get in touch, whatever. I think it would be interesting information to have as well as we go forward with more talks with the community about the community land.
Be a good part of the housing series.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyways, I said to him, I gave him a little background on Bowen Island, and I did say, would having municipal land be looked at favorably? And he said, definitely. If you had, and especially if you have developers who would be interested in the surfing, that would be a very good fit. So, there you go. I believe, yeah, so again, but I think that what I thought was really interesting is that they're really going, 50 to 100,000 is for household income. And I thought that was a really good fit for us, probably where people are struggling.
Just, I looked him up. His phone number is local, and the vice president of the Housing Hub is Michael Flanagan, who
Oh,
also
interesting.
came and visited.
Yeah, yeah, he's awesome.
So it's under BC Housing.
Yeah.
It's sort of a
Maybe we can
unit
get
within
him
BC
come
Housing.
along with BC Housing.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, yeah, maybe he and James Forsyth could both come on the 11th.
So I said that James Forsyth was coming, and he said, well, get in touch quick, because I'm booking up quick, so.
Okay,
Great.
get in touch quick.
Yeah.
Public comments? Question period? No? All right. Then we're, you survived your first meeting.
Yay! Good for
Thank you for
I
staying.
think you were awake the whole time. I think you were awake the whole
We're going to
time.
be having a closed meeting now, so
Okay.
there won't be anybody standing around that you can ask any questions. So
Can I
we've got them now.
Can I just have one